Okay, so next step is I need to check all the clutch packs to see which ones have a problem. I checked this one already, doesn't have a problem, but I'll show it to you anyways. I've taken this ring off. It was a snap ring inside here. Basically, you just unclip it and then just work around here and it'll come off. So this first one is the thickest one, and this is it's like an end ring or the top ring. I forgot what the name is. Okay, so and this one you can get in different thicknesses because in case the clutch pack is too big or too small, you can get this in different sizes. So that's what the outer part looks like, and the inner part acts as a steel because it rides up on this friction here. So it's gonna have wear marks on it. You can see it's worn on the inside where the friction rubbed up against it. This actually feels pretty smooth all the way. So this van had 144,000 miles on it, and these frictions actually look like they could be reused. And they feel really hard to the touch. But like I said, I took a sharp pick and I stabbed it. And even though this seemed like it was harder than the Raybestos GPX frictions, the Raybestos ones were actually harder because it seemed like it made a deeper hole in here. So I'm gonna keep this together so I don't mess this up. But so you have your outer ring, your top ring or your end ring, whatever it's called, friction, steel, and it's just gonna alternate like that. And this is actually the entire clutch pack for whatever gear this is. This is either it's like fourth gear or it's first gear, something like that. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frictions and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus the end plate. And this is just dirt. And you always, if you're gonna reuse this, one thing you could do is just get an extra one of these, because you'll actually see that this is worn on the inner part. It's actually worn down. It's metal to metal. It's not dirt. And the reason why is because there's a spring ring in here, which is this. It's basically and it has its own groove in here. And this ring is cupped. You can see it's cupped, and so it would have it would have spun on here, and that's why the groove, you see a groove on the last, or the very bottom steel. And here looks like, okay, so I think what I'm seeing is this clutch pack was on top of this clutch pack, separated by this, which looks like either a separator plate or another end plate. So I haven't seen this before. So this this recess is where that spring ring went into. So this is all dirt. Actually, that dirt is actually iron. It's magnetic, and it still feels pretty smooth actually. And this one's got a different pattern of friction material. It's weird. It's actually got a cage. You can see that there's a metal cage. So it's like a cage inside of a cage. Oh, I get it. This is the one with the weird steels. Yeah, this is the one that's... Okay, so... here's what it looks like. For some reason there's like a score mark. Actually that feels... it looks like a score mark, but it actually feels pretty smooth. So these look basically brand new too. It looks like I could reuse this. So that's what that looks like. Okay, so here's a closer look at the cage. And we're gonna take that snap ring off later because it's got a giant spring on there. And so let's take off this other side, which has another set of clutch packs. So basically, you just find the end of the snap ring right here. Okay, so once you've got one end off, so this has an end plate too. So there's that. And it feels smooth all across. Most of this is just dirt. Except it doesn't come off for some reason. And this one's got a different pattern on it too. It's got a double stacked pattern. And this is the entire clutch pack too. So at the end plate, just like before, you have a friction rubbing up against the end plate, and then a regular steel so it looks like and these look like they're halfway worn. I would definitely replace these. Or maybe they're not. Actually, they're probably just like new. So basically, end plate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frictions, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steels. And so just like before, the last steel, okay, that actually feels smooth. It should have, just like before, here I'm gonna do that. I'm trying to keep everything in a exploded diagram. So this should be the top and the bottom of that needle bearing. So it should go right on top of this gear, and this should go up inside this this gear, and this should go straight back into the basket. Here's what the inside of this one looks like. So I know this is the piston. There's a giant spring right here, under here. So I know that there's probably an O-ring inside, an O-ring on the outside diameter edge of the piston. Oh, this one actually, it's got its own snap ring too. So let me try taking this one off. I don't even have a clue how you would even compress this to put the snap ring back on. You'd have to use like, I don't even know. But let's take this off. And actually, okay, so reversible snap ring pliers. Okay, now they spread open. That side's really hard, so let's try the bottom side. So this one's got the same kind of snap ring. Alright, I figured out what's going on. Basically, the spring is applying pressure to that snap ring. That snap ring's keeping it in place, but the spring is also pushing it out. So the only way to get that snap ring out is, well, because this retainer right here is not allowing the snap ring to expand. So you have to probably put a piece of wood or something here, and then get like two hand clamps, and push it down, or use a hydraulic press or something. Push this down, then you can expand the snap ring and take it off. Then let go of this, and so this will free up the piston. And it looks like the exact same thing is happening on the other side. Except the bad thing is, you're gonna have to get something that only grips this outer part. Push it down, and then expand this snap ring to take all this off, and then get the piston out. Okay, so I have enough to know that it looks like the spring and everything is okay on that double clutch pack. So I'm just gonna move on. I'll just get at that later. We're gonna take this apart, and looks like the first thing to do is take off this washer. Looks like there's a needle bearing under it. And I'm not sure if there's an up or down to this, but it looks like there's like a little groove on the inside ring. So I'm just gonna keep it together. Okay, looks like this whole double gear comes out. Or, yeah, looks like a double gear. Oh, it looks like there's a needle bearing inside. Shoot. Okay. Didn't think that was gonna happen. Okay, so I'm not sure which side is up and which side's down. It probably doesn't matter. Actually, you know, there's a lip in there. So, since I know that, it probably means that, oh, and there's actually two of them. So, nope, still have no clue. Anyways, one of these went in here, And this one also went in here. And then this needle bearing. So I'm guessing that's the bottom. It looks flatter. Looks like another washer. Okay, actually it's a collar. It's like a collar washer. It's got a hole in it. So I'm guessing that hole matches up with that groove. Yep. So that hole matches up with that groove, and that little notch matches up with that groove. I think that's it. This bottom part, I don't even get how this needle bearing got on here. So these two, this shaft must separate or something. Okay, I figured it out. This needle bearing is captured by that snap ring right there. So just take off that snap ring and that needle bearing should come off. And these are sealing rings, these black ones. That's pretty heavy. Okay, you can see that these sealing rings are actually cut at a diagonal. And I think they're made of fiber. So what you do is, before you put it on, you squeeze it so that they go past each other. And so when you let go, it helps to squeeze it in. And then you're going to put it around here. And that's how it's supposed to work. They actually look like they're in good shape. Okay, so this Okay, so here's how to get this off. Basically, just tap on here. Tap on the end. And you see it went through. And it looks like a single gear with a spline. So that splines in with the friction plates, not the steel plates. The steel plates spline with the basket or the drum. Not sure what that sound was. Okay, it's this. Okay. So let's see. Here's the bottom side. And so here's the top side. So the top side has kind of like a lip or a shaft. Okay, so here's how this works. This one's got 3 O-rings here. 1, 2, and 3. And this slides out. Needle bearing. And another needle bearing. I'm going slow because I've actually never seen this before. I need to make sure that everything's, I can organize everything. Okay, so this has a lip on the bottom of this washer, and it's a splined washer. And so I'm guessing, yeah, one of the vertical needle bearings rolled on here, because you can see the groove, or you can see the wear mark. So just gotta remember that there's a really thin, wide needle bearing here and a vertical needle bearing here. Okay, it looks like there's also the same needle bearing on the opposite side where that spline washer came out of. So there's that one and that one, which came out of there. Okay, next we gotta take off the snap ring. If I just do this. Okay, so you can see here's a spring ring. So you can see how it's curved. The wider edge, the wider side is on the bottom towards the piston, and the thinner one touches the last steel plate. And this one, you can see it's worn a track right into the plate. And this one you can actually feel it's worn on the very last groove. That's actually a groove. And it looks like it's moved around because there's more than one groove. There's that groove and there's that groove. And so that spring ring, I believe, would have gone into that track right there. This skinnier track. That's where the spring ring would have nested inside. And I'm gonna have the same problem with this one. I'm gonna have to compress this to expand this snap ring to take out this piston. But looks like the spring is intact. These clutches look good. And the steel, I believe that thin ring you see is where the friction, see there's a groove in there, so that wasn't worn out. But actually it feels pretty smooth all the way across. And these look pretty good. There's the end steel, the end ring, and I don't feel that either. Okay, we're going to take this one off. And so the spring ring would have been in here. And this is actually a relief valve in the piston. And this one, it wore a groove on the outer edge and it jumped like 2 places. And by jumping, it probably just did this. So that friction looks pretty good. And that feels pretty smooth. Yep. So out of this whole thing, the only clutch pack that was a problem was third gear. And part of the reason might have been because third gear is the only gear that has its own drum and it's closed on the other side. This is a shared drum, so it shares it with two clutch packs. That one shares it with two clutch packs. And third gear is actually, it's divided by a firewall. From the middle case, there's like a firewall. Then third gear is like in its own little, it's in its own room. So maybe it's not getting enough lubrication, not enough oil flow. So maybe that's why it destroyed itself. I don't know. But that's the only difference, because all these frictions for those two and those two, they all look pretty good.